Thank you, Naomi. We're just starting our last session of oral finals for the first semester of 2018. We're now in 2019, and we're excited to have you five, although Dylan is not here yet, but we're excited for you. And Naomi, you're going to just bring in the last of all the finals. So we're going to ask you the most hardest questions. I'm just kidding. Oh, here's Dylan. Good. We just are starting, Dylan. If you can come on camera. We are talking about logistics really quickly. We have about 2 minutes before Carter does his oral. But just really quickly, remember that oral finals, no, I know you're nervous, so just get rid of the nervousness, but remember that oral finals are very different than written finals. Written finals, you pretty much need to show forth as much knowledge as you can because you've got the books there, you've got your notes there, you've got everything, right? With oral finals, you don't have any notes, you don't have any books. It's different. You are actually coming up with the things that you have stored in your heart and in your mind, and now you're regurgitating them, and sometimes they don't come out exactly how you would like them, and you get nervous because of that. But that's not what we're looking at. Well, we are looking at that in a sense, but we're looking to see how well you act with that. If there needs to be some silence because you can't collect your thoughts, that's okay. Silence is a very good thing. And if you need to let us know, it's pretty good to say, I'm having a hard time thinking of what I want to say. Just give me a minute. And then we'll give you a minute and we'll let you think and we'll let you gather the thoughts that are out in the air. And if you are having a brain cramp or a mental block, say that. Say, I'm having a mental block right now. But there's also an option. You can say, if you really don't know the answer, you can actually say either, I really don't know that. I'd like to learn it. And we can teach it. Or you can say, I'd like to defer this question and talk about something that I do know. So there's a lot of options here. And if you do defer the question, that's great. We will go that route. We may return back and see if we can ask the question a little differently and see if you can find out what's in your mind and your heart in a different way. So that's kind of what oral finals are. It's the pulling out of what is in you, okay? So with that, do you have any questions? Nope, okay. And we'll have you stand up. So, yep, so Carter's set an example. He's gonna stand up here and be ready for, what else did I want to say? There was something else I wanted to say. Erica, do you have anything that maybe I forgot or that you want to add?
Yeah. Oral finals are really unique because you're not just writing and putting your content out there, but you're hearing it as you're saying it out loud. And it's a time for you to realize all that you've learned all this semester. It's kind of a proving point for yourself more than anything else.
Thank you, Erica. You're going to get 15 minutes, which seems like it's a long time, but really it's not. Some people go to college, and if your college administers oral finals, especially at the master's level or the doctorate level, you're looking at 3 hours. Okay. But just think of this as a conversation. That's kind of another way to think of it. We're having a conversation, and it's basically just the mentors and you. Okay, I'm starting off. I think I'm going to start some questions, and then I will ask, where's my, there it is, my questions I've got to have. I'll start off with the questions, and I'll turn some time over to Erica, if that's okay, Erica. All right, we've started it. You're up. Carter, this class has been a huge class, and you have had less, everybody has had less ability to participate because there's so many more people. Can you tell me if that has been beneficial to you or if it has been less beneficial to you? You didn't expect that question, did you?
No, but I don't know. I've been able to participate in both. When I first started humanities, it was like in a group of 4 or 5 people, just students, and then you. So that was we all got to participate a lot, and that was a blessing just because I was able to really learn a lot. But then in this setting, there's also been a lot of positive. There's been lots of pros and cons. Like one of the major pros is that I've been able to learn from like other kids that I usually like. I'll take Lincoln, for example. I see Lincoln almost once a week, and we always have great conversations, but usually we don't talk about these kind of ideas. Like we wouldn't discuss Tocqueville's philosophies about government and different things. And so in that sense, I've been very thankful because I've been able to experience a wide view of ideas and thoughts. And also I definitely love to participate. And so I would just say that like if I definitely do miss the smaller classroom setting, but I also do appreciate the larger setting too.
No, I appreciate hearing that. What do you do as an example to others who are listening to continue to keep yourself attentive even when you're not participating as much? What do you do in class? I don't know why I'm asking these questions. They're just all coming out this way.
It's all right. So like in class time or or like okay. I would say try to listen. I don't know. It's hard because sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't need to participate because they got it covered. I mean, there's 20 other kids. And so like, they're gonna, I don't need to participate. But then I found that if I really try to focus and just think to myself, Carter, you gotta like try to be present in every setting. I've read a lot of books about like how to train your mind. And they said, and one of the main principles I've taken from that is they talk about being present in every setting that you're in, whether it's sports or business. Thanks. Sorry about that, Jake and I we're sitting right next to each other and I could hear myself. But, and so I just think if you can stay present, like if you focus on making sure your mind's fully engaged, then that's definitely helped me.
Wow. Awesome. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and ask you, no, is it okay, Erica, if we go to you? Do you have some questions for him? You weren't prepared. Oh, you are prepared. Okay.
No, I was just trying to find my mouse between the two screens.
She's got a new computer set up.
Carter, how would you define natural law?
Man, the way I kind of define natural law is it's just like everything it's like what happens naturally. I don't know. I know you're not supposed to use the word when like you're defining something, but I can't think of another word instead of natural. It's just like if you were to stick a piece of metal outside for like a year, then it just naturally is going to rust, and that can be applied to other things. Like there's definitely a natural law in a business setting and a medical setting and everything. And since we've studied that this year, I've been able to see how that applies. So like with am I okay to continue on this tangent? So like in my parents' business, we talk about how, like, if the farmers are doing well, or if like if like the farmers, for example, we'll just go with that. If they're doing well, then that usually will lead to them doing well, just because like then they're able to sell their products for a higher price, and then we can also, like, then because of them being able to sell their vegetables or whatever it is, then they have like more money and they can come buy a product from us. And so I think that's just an idea of natural law.
So you're saying it's something you can expect, a result you can expect from any certain behavior or action.
Mm-hmm.
How could you apply that in any principle-based
And what? Sorry.
principles that we might live in our lives? How could you apply natural law and principles we apply?
Well, just like God, he's created these natural laws, for us to live by. So he's created this world. And so then he's given us given us commandments to live by. And so like the 10 commandments, the law of chastity, the word of wisdom, and all these different commandments that if we keep, then we will receive blessings. Like it's kind of like a covenant we make with God. Just because he's set up this natural law, then I think he also, like, naturally he'll just implement that into the promises he makes with us.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
We can totally expect results from those behaviors, and we know perhaps the promised blessings he gives us and such. Why is that important to know in our society today?
I think it's definitely easy to forget that even plays a part in our lives. Lots of times people will just say, "Oh, like, you're in charge of your own destiny," which you are because you're given agency. But if you break those promises with God, then your agency becomes restricted. And then after we die, then we can't progress. We're going to be stuck. And I just find that interesting, because no matter how hard you try to change that, it's impossible, because of this natural law that's in place.
Yeah. Excellent. You wanted to go with Sister Greenman?
Oh, okay. Excellent. So I kind of want to go deeper there, because there are 3 categories of natural law. You were talking about one of them, which is there's scientific laws. And then you were talking about another one. What would you call those?
That we were just talking about?
Yeah.
I don't.
Just come up with something. What would you categorize that in?
I guess it's like something. It's like religious. I don't know. It's kind of like I don't know. I don't think that's the right word. I can't.
I think that's really, really good. I think it's getting right closer. So, and there's not really one way, but there are godly laws. Mm-hmm. That's what it was. Religious laws. But I would say godly, because there's a lot of religions out there, but many of them aren't God's religion, right?
Yeah.
I would say godly laws. There are scientific laws, and there are laws that govern the universe. So scientific laws, and I'm talking about animals and plant kingdom and physics and the science that we have. And then there's laws that govern the universe with the planets, so the planetary. So those 3 categories cover every bit of movement and laws that direct us, the planets, and everything on our planet. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. So as you go out in the world, you recognize that natural law is every bit of it.
Mm-hmm. So thank you.
Awesome. You're welcome. So awesome. Let's go with what was the book that was probably the most influential for you this semester? See, you've got about 5 minutes left.
That's a really difficult question, just because like we've read so many different such a wide variety of books, and lots of times we couldn't even like we read the Communist Manifesto and all those other ones that are really important pieces of literature. But if I had to choose one,
maybe they were important, but I'm talking about for you.
What impressed me the most?
Yeah.
Oh, I think I really enjoyed reading That Which Is Seen and That Which Is Not Seen.
Tell me why.
Just because, like, I knew that if I did this action, then like there would be something that followed, but I never really thought about the extent of everything that followed. And lots of times, like my dad, one time he told me and my brothers not to be the weak link in a chain. So like he said, so you have this huge chain of your ancestors and then your posterity. And he said, if you like were to break that chain by like not keeping your covenants, not going on your mission, then that like think of the effect that will have on your entire like, your posterity, and then even the people, even your ancestors too. And then when I read this book, that like totally kind of drew a connection. Like as I'm talking about this now, I can even see another, like I keep seeing different ways to connect that into my life. And I just thought that was so cool. Like I would talk to my friends about it who are also reading it, and they're like, oh, this isn't like our favorite book. And I was like, why? This is incredible. Like what he's saying is so profound. He's saying that if you do like even the littlest thing, like it can create like this huge effect. And I just think that's so cool.
Awesome. So we're doing an oral final. What we're seeing it, everybody's seeing it, but what is not seen? What do you think? Think about that. What are some of the things that are not seen?
I think like what the effect this oral final will have on like my life after this class, we talked about like in a master's setting of college, like you will have these huge oral finals, and then after college, like you have jobs and you're gonna have job interviews, and you're gonna have to get up in front of like a group of people or just a person, and you're gonna have to share like why you're valuable to this company or why you should be hired for this job. And I just think that oral finals help you prepare for that setting.
Wow. Not to mention the blessings that the mentors get from being able to see into your heart. So it's pretty amazing. Awesome. Okay, let's go to the book that was probably the most difficult for you, whether it's the theme or whether it was the writing or whatever. What was the most difficult book for you and why?
I really struggled with Anne Frank. We just read that, and that's like kind of been one that's been on my mind. I don't know why, but I hated it. I expressed some of that in my writings too. Like just because, just like the way she wrote and the themes she wrote about, I was just like, this is like, you're a part of the World War II and you're writing about this. I didn't agree with her. And I mean, it was a good book and I learned a lot from her.
What did you learn? What did you learn? I'm going to help you go deeper.
One thing I struggled with was she wasn't very thankful for what she had. She had this wonderful family, and she didn't get along with her parents or her sister. And I was throughout the book, I was quite sad because of that. Just because even though I struggled to always get along with my brothers, I still wouldn't trade like the relationships we have. And especially with my parents, like we talk about a lot of things, and I just always know that they're always in my corner, and for her not to be able to have that, I just felt really sad for her.
Yeah, pity. Think of it though. If you and your, just 1 second, if you and your siblings, your mom and dad, were living with another family that wasn't related to you, and you were stuck together for, what was it, 2, 3 years?
Mm-hmm.
Without being able to go outside, would life be so awesome for you?
No, it'd be awful.
Yeah, you might write a few things in your journal too. And
Yeah.
it's an interesting thing to see the things that are not seen pretty much. So awesome. You did so good. You had some hard questions, difficult questions at the front at the beginning, just because I don't know why I asked them, but you did really well. So awesome. Let's give him a hand, everybody. Good job, Carter. You did it. Is this like your penultimate oral that you're going to have? That means the second to the last?
Yeah, I
'Cause
think so.
You're off to college soon, right?
My mission.
Your mission.
Yeah,
So when do you turn 18?
I'm 18.
Whoa, that's exciting.
Yeah, it's a unreal feeling to think that I can be gone in like 8 months. I could be in another country.
Have you started your paperwork yet? Probably not.
You know, my bishop wants to start them like the end of this month to the beginning of the next month.
Cool.
Yeah.
Edie is filling out her paperwork the end of February. So you and she will go out on missions at the same time. It's kind of
That's
fun.
exciting.
It's exciting. Okay, good job. Let me just write a few things and then we'll go to Dylan. And Erica, if you can get prepared. She left. But I think she can still hear me. Her apartment's so cute and tiny in Tennessee. Erica, if you could prepare to start Dylan off, that'd be great. Okay, just a second. Okay. All right. All right, Erica, if you want to get ready.
Yeah.
Dylan, some questions. Did you hear me when you were off? You're awesome.
I was just in the kitchen. It's close to dinner. Well, getting dinner ready.
All right. Dylan, you look sharp.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm starting. Go.
All right. Dylan, of the readings that we were able to learn from this semester, what was one that resonated with you most, and why?
For sure, I would have to say Les Miserables, because the character of Jean Valjean just really spoke to me. And then on top of that, the bishop is amazing. And so just from reading that and comparing all the things in my life that is happening in the story just really spoke to me.
What was something that you were able to compare in your life to the story?
Well, it wasn't something necessarily that I compared as in we both had, but I just really loved how the bishop let Jean Valjean stay with him, even though he knew that he could be a really dangerous person, and just that amount of faith that he had and how he totally trusted all of his life to God. I mean, that showed in his like expenses list too, where he was paid like this huge amount and he only kept like a tiny portion of it. And I just really want that kind of faith and courage to be able to do something like that.
That's awesome. When we read inspiring stories like that, we can feel such a strong desire to be that way. But often there's a gap between that and our actions. How would you bridge that gap of being able to act on those things and not just be inspired by them?
Well, I feel like for sure that you can't just go out and start making these dramatic changes in your life. You have to set goals and accomplish things little by little and be willing to accept that it might take you a really long time to get to that point, but that nothing worthwhile ever comes easy, and that we're going to have to work for it. And that once we get, it might not seem like it's worth it while we're getting there, but once we get there and look back, we'll realize that it was worth it.
Yeah, I think you're right. What was a reading that was perhaps more difficult for you, whether it was that you didn't appreciate the actions of some of the characters, or that you didn't, or that it was harder to read from the writing?
I feel like that which is seen and that which is not seen was harder for me to grasp than some of the other books. Like Carter was saying, we would talk about it and he'd be like, this is amazing. And I'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about. I do not understand this at all. And so like, I would like read for hours each day. I'd like reread the book, and like, I got to where I could like kind of figure out what he was talking about, but I never like connected with it like I did with some of the other books.
Yeah, he was introducing a new way of thinking. And to understand it, we had to adjust our way of thinking.
Which is definitely something I don't enjoy doing.
Adjusting your thinking.
Yeah.
I actually wanted to ask about that. What helps you see new perspectives as you read different opinions?
Well, I think for sure, well, number one, accepting that I'm going to do the reading anyway, and that so I might as well have a good attitude about it. And then once I have that good attitude, I can start to try and put myself in the author's footsteps, and I look up what the world was like when the author was writing, the backstory on the author, and then I can kind of try see it as he was seeing it.
Yeah. Were there other readings that perhaps changed your way of thinking or challenged your personal opinions?
Well, I studied the Communist Manifesto before for a different class, and it was kind of just, we were really in a hurry, so I just breezed over it, didn't really pay that much attention to it. And I feel like I'd always thought that there was nothing worthwhile or good in it. I just felt like it was just like communism, and that's bad, and I don't want to know about that. And I just read it because it was assigned to me. And this time when I read through it, I was, well, for one, I was studying it deeper because I had to actually write about it. And I found things that were worthwhile. It was just, he went about it wrong, and he wanted it for the wrong reasons, I feel like. Like, I don't know, it's really hard to explain for me, but like wanting everyone to have the same thing, everyone being equal is good, just the way he was doing it wasn't, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Like the means didn't justify the end.
Right.
Why is it important for us to read or understand different perspectives?
Well, I feel like that when we are closed to others' perspectives, then there's no understanding there and there's no connection. I had a world religions trip where we went down to Utah and visited other religions. And one of those that we visited a Muslim mosque. And people just like joke about like them being terrorists and terrible people and how they're causing all these problems. But really, they're people just like us, and they're just trying to do what they view as best. And a lot of the problems that are caused, according to Muslims, really are just caused because we're not willing to work with them. And so when we can truly understand that most people are just trying to do the best thing they can, that really helps people get along, and it helps the world in general.
That's a really neat example. Thank you.
Good job. Just reminded me, I want to talk to you right after the final about something. Okay, I wanna go a little deeper with natural law. You heard us talking about it with Carter. If you look at this natural law, and this is so reiterate, what is natural law for you?
This is one of the things that I had a harder time with, and I tried to understand. I feel like natural law is like, it's what your conscience tells you. It's things that happen naturally. It's things that are right, as I understood it.
That's exactly right. When you look at the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson used the word nature. He said nature and nature's God. And he was taught, when we hear people saying nature, that's another word for God. But when it gets really confusing when you read King Benjamin's talk in Mosiah 3:19, where he talks about the natural man, that's different than natural law. Okay.
Right.
So natural man, there's a lot of contradictions with words sometimes, and we get confused, and that's why. So remember that nature and nature's God is God and all his laws. Nature is the laws. Good nature's God is God. So you were right on. So if you're looking at this natural law idea, I want you to look at all the books that you can think of in this semester and tell me which books you think pretty much follow natural law. Now, which books would those be?
So let me clarify the question. Natural law, they follow natural laws in the book follows God's law. I don't really understand the question.
Yeah, oh, that's okay, because I think natural law is a hard thing to understand, but it's so simple. Natural law is God's law, and it includes all the laws of the heavens, all the laws of the universe, all the laws of what's going to happen if a bear doesn't get enough food or water. It's going to die. That's a scientific law. But every single bit of laws that come down that they must be followed. In other words, you can't break yourself. You can't break the law, but you can break yourself against the law. So the law is there. It's there, steady and going, and it's never going to change. So if you look at natural law, if you look at all the books, Les Mis probably, and I'm going to just say this, follows natural law, because there are consequences that are going to happen if somebody doesn't follow God's law, and they get consequences, right? So if you look at all the rest of the books, what are some of those books that you would think follows natural law? And we've got, The Wealth of Nations, Hiding Place, Candide, Rime of the Ancient Mariner, Emma, Sublime as Now, Frankenstein, and we can go on. Which of those?
Yeah, I see what you're saying now.
Okay.
Every book follows it to some degree. I mean, some of them were obviously more about it than others, but every book talked about consequences and how things happen. I mean, that's what we're studying, is how consequences work and how the world works, and what people think, and what they think directly affects their actions, which affects their consequences. So I think every book had at least some portion of say in it.
Okay. And what do you think about, I'm going to plug these in. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Plug in my daughter. I forgot to put them on. What do you think about the Communist Manifesto? Do you think it follows natural law?
I feel like there's a lot of things in it that are against natural law, but I feel like he was trying to achieve the pure version of natural law.
Okay, and what is that pure version? Sorry.
I feel like he was trying to make life easier for everyone, himself included, and if he ended up on the top of that, then that was fine by him. But he wanted everyone. I feel like he did want life to be easier for everyone, and I feel like that falls under natural law.
Okay. So is that what God wants us to do? Is he wants to have life be easy for us?
I feel he wants us to be tested, but I feel like he also wants us to be happy. And the time for us to be tested is now, and the time for us to not have as many trials and to be more learning and studying in a more celestial setting is after this life, obviously. And so I feel like that's one of the things that caused the Communist Manifesto to be off is the timing.
So you're saying the Communist Manifesto is pretty much talking about way up in heaven when we're over there and we don't have to be tested anymore.
Yeah, I feel like he was trying to get a jump start on
Okay.
some principles.
So I really want to go deeper on this. This is so cool. So the main purpose of Satan is to what?
Lead us away from Christ.
Lead us away from Christ. But how does he do that? He
feeds us half truths.
He feeds us half truths. And in Book of Moses, it says his whole purpose was to destroy agency. Right? And that's something that is pretty clear. So he's destroying agency by helping us have a hard time and then blame other people for our choices. Do you see how he's destroying agency for me? When I blame Carter because I had to come here in my dress again for the 4th time this week, I'm blaming Carter because I have to do this. I have to wear a dress. Is that taking away my agency? Yeah. So with the Communist Manifesto, his whole purpose was to destroy agency of the bourgeois, destroy agency of anybody. So he was taking away the choices for people. So with that, do you still think it is following natural law?
I feel like for the idea of the Communist Manifesto to work, it's not enforced, it's freely given. It's the same idea of everyone sharing, but we still have the agency to decide whether or not we want to participate. But because of the knowledge that we will have, we will decide to participate, even though we're not forced to. And I feel like that's one of the differences between the law of consecration and the Communist Manifesto.
Yeah, a lot. That's true. In God's way, we'll be able to choose all the things that we want to be able to choose, and we'll want to because we'll be with God. It's interesting how he chooses to get rid of all of that, to get rid of history so people don't find out. He gets rid of families, he's getting rid of marriages, he's getting rid of all these things and forcing people to live a communal system, and they can't make choices. So it's really interesting to look at it in that sense, that it destroys agency. So very good. Let's give him a big hand. I think I didn't rip on you as hard as I did on Carter, according to your little joke there. But you did really, really well. I very well. Excellent. You thought on your feet, and I didn't even write any notes, and usually I do. Sorry about that. So I'm going to take a few minutes. And then we will, I think, Mikhail, are you up? Let me see. Is it you? Nope, it's Jake. And then Mikhail. So Jake, just give me a few minutes here. Good job, Dylan. Yeah, in orals, we asked different questions than were on the test. Probably just to kind of, orals are a place where you're supposed to learn new things too, just so you know. And I think a lot of times we say things and we teach ourselves as we say things. Does that ever happen to you guys? Did that happen today, Carter? And yeah, you're saying something, it's like, oh, I'm teaching myself something. This is cool. I love that with orals. Okay, almost done here. Good. Okay. Oh, I was going to tell you, I'm glad I wrote this down. I was going to tell you, I loved what you said about understanding different peoples, and you were talking about the Muslims, and I took a class in college and we read the Quran. And if you are ever able to just get your hands on a Quran, you will find that it is very similar to the story of Abraham in the Bible. The whole Quran is that story with his son Ishmael, right? And Ishmael's 12 sons. Okay, so of course Abraham has 2 sons, Ishmael and Isaac. He's got more, but Isaac's got 12 sons and Ishmael's got 12 sons, and so that's why the Muslims believe that they are the chosen people. But the whole Quran is beautiful, and it talks about, you know, that people should not drink alcohol and they should not take drugs into their bodies. It kind of has a word of wisdom in it. It does talk about killing, but it only talks about killing, I can't remember exactly, but it talks about how basically it's kind of a feeling like those who aren't going to believe in God are basically killing themselves. They're having spiritual death. And we believe in that too. So it's really fascinating that they have a lot of the same beliefs as we do. And as soon as their doors are open and people are called to missions there, they are going to come over so readily because they know so much about our religion. They just don't believe that Jesus Christ is the Savior. That's just not in there. It's basically the Old Testament, like the Jews. So very fascinating.
Yeah. The mentor, he has a copy of the Quran, and it's got like the Arabic and English side by side.
Yeah.
And, he was talking about how like their view of Christ and how they view him as like an amazing man and a prophet.
Yeah.
So like in some senses they're further along than the other religions.
Totally agreed. It'll be neat. That's why we want to open our doors to them and be kind and loving, just like you said. That was so awesome. I have to write that down because I wanted to remember that. Okay, thanks. All right, Jake, it's your turn. Where did I put Carter's paper? Oh, right here. Okay. All right, Jake. Let me get the timer going. You ready? You look sharp.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, here we are. The timer is going. Jake, this year has been your first year in humanities class. What has been the greatest lesson that you have learned about yourself?
I would say I have a tendency to procrastinate just a little bit, and that it's not a good thing to procrastinate, and that's what I've learned that's what I learned the most from this semester with the reading, because it's hard to read these books, because with underlining and annotating the books, you have to really study them, and you can't just read real quick. like you would just if you're going to read and not really pay attention a whole month, a lot. But with this, you really have to pay attention and find quotes and questions, and you have to think when you're reading. And that it was, they would build up, I'd miss a day, and then I have to do double. And it was stressful on me, and it took a lot out of me this semester.
Oh,
And I think that's what the greatest lesson I learned.
yeah, that is tough. I've been there. So what have you done to remedy it? What has been your lesson that you learned with it?
My mom has preached this my whole life pretty much, is make a daily plan. And I have with short periods of time for like 3 days, and I've been able to accomplish things quickly, and then I have more time for free time, and then I would stop, and then I'd procrastinate, and then it would just go in the cycle. But then now lately I've really been trying to work on a plan, and I follow through. And I think that's what I started doing towards the end of the semester to try to really complete it, was making a plan, following through, and that's the remedy, I guess.
Oh, you're awesome. I have to do the same thing. I have a card every day and I make a plan. I have to do the same thing, or I'm the same way. There's a lot of little notes in my report cards from grade school that says, Julie has a hard time paying attention. Julie keeps looking out the window. She has a hard time getting back to her work. She has a hard time handing things in on time. I was the same way, but it works as long as you keep doing that. That's awesome. Good job. So tell me, what was, we've talked a little bit about natural law. Both Carter and Dylan have talked about natural law. And how do you understand natural law?
I guess it's just things that happen without much thought, kind of. Like a tree will grow and you don't really think about it, but it's growing and it's just naturally becoming a bigger tree.
Will it grow without water or sunlight?
No. Yeah, and so these natural components of the world and soil, and you have to have certain soils for different trees or, the garden. And that's just the natural way of living. And then there's natural laws that we have to follow in order to return celestial glory, or do these, or go where we want to go, I guess.
Yeah. Awesome.
And
oh, go ahead.
I guess that's what natural law to me is.
Good. Very good. Okay, so we've gone many centuries understanding that as a people, understanding that if you let the sun in, S-O-N, you grow spiritually, right? And if you let the S-U-N, the plants will grow, and we also will get vitamin D and all those things. So if we let the sun in, we grow. But we have been thrust into a world, and we were born into this world of these ideas of postmodernism. And this is probably more of a difficult question, but what do you understand about what postmodernism is? What is it?
I really don't know. I remember we had a couple weeks back, we were having a class discussion on postmodernism, and I remember Jay saying a couple things, but before this class, it really never crossed my mind. I guess I really didn't even know it existed, but
I didn't learn about postmodernism until I was about 50. So don't worry about it. You're learning about it earlier. So postmodernism, let me just kind of tell you briefly, it just means basically you've got your own truth. You don't need God's truth. That's basically what it means. And let me paint a picture. You've seen Lehi's dream. You've not seen it, but you've read about Lehi's dream. Okay. he talks about a pathway leading to the tree of life. What does he describe that pathway looks like?
It's with the iron rod, and it just goes through all these different, it's through fog. So you have to hold on tight to truth and principles you learn, and have to stay and don't get sidetracked to all these other things that tempt you to let go.
Excellent. And it talks about how it's straight and narrow, doesn't it? And the narrowness of that path is because it has lots of restrictions. It means you have to follow natural law. You have to follow God's law to get to the tree, right? You hold on to the rod, which is the word of God, and you walk on this really straight, narrow path, which there's lots of limitations and hardly any options. You can't, if you leave it, you've left it. If you stick a foot off of it and you keep one foot off of it, you're on it, you're probably going to go off. So the other path is this big, wide, expansive path where anything goes. You can do anything. You can believe in anything. You can follow anything. So that is exactly what postmodernism is. It is leaving that straight and narrow path and just choosing your own truth and trying to be happy with it. Does that make sense? Yeah. So we now live in this world that's postmodern. And so anybody can say, oh, well, that's not the truth. God doesn't exist. I'm going to believe more like this, and it doesn't matter. There are no consequences. There is no God. So if you look at it that way, how does understanding postmodernism help prepare you for your life?
It really makes you have to, when you understand something, you like understand what the opposite you believe. So understanding postmodernism helps you guard yourself from those temptations that might be thrown at you, and that it goes back kind of to natural law a little bit, of saying that these are natural things that we have to abide by. And that postmodernism, I feel like, kind of says you don't really have, like, in some sense, you can do whatever you want and there's no consequences. But with knowing that that's how postmodernism is, that, and I don't know what law this is, but to every action there's a reaction. Einstein, that was his law, and that's just how it is. So you have to choose what actions and the consequences you will face with those actions that you commit. And I think knowing this will prepare you for life, because as you're an adult, your actions are, the consequences could be greater. Like Carter, he just turned 18, and so now he can go to prison. Like he has to be careful of the things he commits because there was a greater consequence.
So true. You cannot break the law. You can only break yourself against the law. And that is the epitome of our world right now, is we've got a bunch of people breaking themselves against the law, God's law, and not really reaping the consequences until the very end or sometime later. Excellent. So, so good. You did so well. Erica, do you have some questions for him?
Yeah. What were some of the readings that you feel would be important for our society to know? What principles did they teach? So what was a reading and the principle it taught that our society should know?
I think all of them, I feel like, have played a part. Like you can always learn something from the books we've read. And I feel like I have some in, like, I see sometimes in public school when I'm playing basketball, they just don't read as much as what I feel like I read, because I'm in this class and we're reading all the time. But, and I don't know, I feel like democracy in America would be one, because you get a grasp of all these different principles we're learning. And Les Mis, I feel like one is a good one, because you get to see how Jean Valjean had to reap what he sowed with his actions in committing crimes and having the consequences later in his life. And also with Frankenstein and the kind of actions we commit. Yeah, I think.
What about the actions we commit with Frankenstein?
Well, he created this beast, and he was at first scared of this thing he created, and it went out and committed crimes, and he had to he was in charge because the creature didn't have a conscience and wasn't responsible and didn't have the agency to be responsible of what he committed. So the responsibility and consequences fell on Frankenstein.
What are some things that you might be building or creating in your own life that you feel a responsibility for? And how do you want to be responsible with those things?
Well, right now, our parents have this building in Schwinn, and we're building a rock climbing wall, and Carter and Dylan are along with it. And you feel like I feel entitled sometimes that I have to go in and get things done, and that we have to keep this area clean because it's where my mom has her store. And so the ladies are walking, and we can't just leave a saw open on the ground or something like that because of liabilities. And there's a couple nights back, there was a party there, and I kind of had to go rush in real quick to clean up a couple things because you didn't want things to break. And so I guess I felt the responsibility of keeping it well kept.
Yeah, so it's like this literal thing you are building, and you can see that very clearly. In what ways might your education represent something you are building or creating at this time?
Can you repeat that question? I think I couldn't quite hear it clear.
Yeah. In what ways is your education a representation of something you are building or creating? And how can you be responsible with that?
Well, we're sent here on this earth to learn as much as we can and get back to our Heavenly Father. And with this education and being homeschooled, there's a greater responsibility of learning by your self and having a self-interest in what you're learning, because you don't have a teacher telling you have to do these assignments, and you kind of have to do it on your own and have a desire to learn more. And if we have this desire to learn, it will bless us tremendously.
Definitely. What's something you'd like to apply this coming semester in your education? You talked about how it can be really tricky with keeping up with readings and such. What's one thing you'd like to take away or bring with you in this next semester?
I think reading, we were doing these readings, and to dig deeper into these books and really think about what their true meaning is. Also, participating in class more, because you learn a lot from other students, and if you participate, then you throw your ideas out there, and then they can help build those principles you're learning, because they're throwing their ideas and it kind of just mixes up, and then you feel like you played a part in this discussion. And I don't know, I think that's what I want to do this next semester more, is participate in the classes.
Yeah. It's like
Awesome.
an exchange.
And our timer went off. Excellent job, Jake. You did great. Excellent for your first oral ever. It was
Thank you.
fantastic. You're welcome. Okay, I'm going to write a little bit, and then our next one's not until 13 minutes. Is it okay if we can just keep going, Mikkel, and not wait? And then we'll go and do Naomi, and we'll end just a little bit earlier than we thought.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm just almost done.
Hey, Ms. Truman,
Yes.
you're going to have to hop off soon
Okay,
because we have practice.
that is fine. You both did so well. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Thank you, Miss Greenman.
Thank you, Jake. Okay, I'm ready. Erica, are you ready? I had a lot of time to write,
Yeah.
thanks to you. You had some great questions. Mikkel, this is your first oral ever. What do you think?
I'm kind of nervous and also excited.
There's a song like that. Have you ever seen the musical Into the Woods?
Oh yeah.
I'm excited and scared.
Yeah.
Yes. Fun song. I love it. Okay, I'm going to get your name on this. Okay, and then find the timer. Erica, who started the last one?
I think you did, so I can start.
Do you want to start this one?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, I'm starting it right now. Bing!
Okay. Just started moving.
She's going to take up your whole time by just thinking. No, your baby's kicking, right?
Yep. It's a really special moment. Okay. For you this semester, Mikkel, what was a favorite reading and why is that?
One of my favorite readings was The Hiding Place. I had a lot of favorite readings, but that was just one of them. I had to read it for 2 classes, so I got a lot out of it, and which is probably why it was one of my favorites, because I like it. I like to understand things really well, and at first I was kind of like bummed out. I was like, oh, this is kind of boring, but I think it was a really good book. I loved how one of my favorite parts of it was when Betsy taught her that you should be thankful for anything, and Corey can even be thankful for the fleas, and she was like, that's insane, but they turned out to be useful. And I've used that a lot in my life. Like when I think things are wrong, I'm like, I think that God has a plan for me. Yeah.
It's really neat. How did you see Betsy apply small actions in her behaviors to benefit those around her and to be an influence to those around her?
I think she was a huge influence to Corey. Of course, I think she taught her a lot about religion, how good her God was, because Corey was kind of stubborn, I think. She loved God, but she was like, there's no way I can do this. But Betsy taught her that anything is possible with God, and God knows everything. And when Betsy got hurt, and she's like, you can't just let them hurt you, and she was like, God has a plan for us. And I think she impacted Corey in a huge way, and I think she impacted all of her family. She may have impacted the guards, like not most of the people act that way, I guess. I don't know.
Totally. What's something about either Corey or Betsy or any character in that book that you would like to emulate in your character?
Kind of in the first question I answered, I I'd like to be thankful for everything God gives me. And sometimes it's really hard because I say my prayers before I go to bed, and I'm like, there's no way I can thank him for everything, but because I'm so tired and just want to go to bed. But I've been trying to like think of the things that were really important, and that I was even little things. I normally miss the little things. I just thank the big things that happened that day, but the little things I realize like how much they mean.
That's so meaningful. Even specifically the little things you may have asked for earlier that day. You know, to report back and say, hey, I asked for help on this little thing and I felt it. Those little things go a long way. How would you compare the principles you learned in Hiding Place with another book that we read this semester?
Well, I think The Hiding Place related a lot to Anne Frank, I guess, because they're both like, the Germans both have taken a huge like control of their life, and they both don't like it, and they both want to change it. And I don't think Corey and Anne were very similar. I mean, obviously Anne was younger, but they both they were very different. Corey, she always prayed and she always had faith in God. And like Carter said, she threw like a lot of tantrums. Like she was worried about worldly things, and Corey was just worried about like heavenly things. So there's a big difference there, but just the same thing with they both Germans have taken a big control on their life.
Great. What do you think could be a perspective change for Anne Frank in order to see her situation differently? How would you help her with that?
Well, I talked about this a little bit in written finals. I said I would probably like, sometimes how I calm down and like have a perspective change is I pray and like ask that I can understand them. A lot of the tantrums that Anne threw like with her mom and the fights they had, when I fight with like my mom or siblings, I like to pray and like get a new understanding and like think of what they do for me. So then when I go to talk to them, I can calm down, I can think of what their perspective. And I think Anne didn't really think about other people's perspective. She mostly just thought about her and like how everything was affecting her.
That makes a big difference. Thank you.
Good job. So now I'm going to ask, we're going to switch gears, and I'm on a roll with postmodernism because I think it's really important that we understand postmodernism. Why do you think I might think it's important that we study and understand postmodernism? Why?
I think postmodernism is important to understand because well, you can see good examples and bad examples about it, and you can know, like, I guess like the quote that's like, you learn about history so that you don't like repeat it. I think that's somewhat about like that, and you can learn about the good things about it so you can know what to do, and you can learn about the bad things about it so you can not repeat it, and so you can find examples when you're reading, and like you can understand more when you read, I guess.
Good, yeah. Looking for examples. I'm going to ask you, what are some examples of our reading that show postmodernism that you can think of?
Well, on the spot, I thought of the Germans. They didn't have any standards for themselves. Well, they had lots of standards for the Jews, but they didn't have standards for themselves. They thought like they could do whatever they want, but I guess that was sort of modernism too, because they were like reforming the Jews' like lives and replacing it. So I think
Excellent.
it's kind of both like perspectives.
Good. Or were there any ideas in Candide that might show this idea of moving away from God and into postmodernism?
I'm trying to think. I think when Candide experienced all those awful things and he experienced like the earthquake, I don't know. I didn't really understand this book. I don't really remember it, but I feel like I'm not really sure.
That's good. Thanks for being humble. No problem. There you were going to the earthquake, and that's a very good example, because what was the attitude toward the earthquake? Do you remember Pangloss? What his attitude was toward this earthquake thing?
Wasn't he like angry that it happened? Like he didn't understand why?
Yeah, exactly. And he's basically trying to say there is no God. God doesn't care for his people. Why, if this earthquake happens, then God must not exist, because he's not going to do that to his people.
Yeah.
But you were right on. You were just not confident enough to say, and that's okay. No problem. So if we look at that idea that we just talked about, how is that showing forth that we're getting closer and closer to postmodernism?
Well, I think God has a lot to do with like modernism. Like the church, they're reforming. They're changing the hours of church we have. They're changing the personal progress program, the faith in God program. Postmodernism is kind of the opposite of that. It's like, well, not the opposite, but it's they just don't really they don't want to change anything. They just want or they don't really have any ideas. They just want to do their thing. And Heavenly Father, He has a plan for us. He wants us to follow His guidelines. He wants us to make it to the path He has plans for us. An example of like postmodernism would be homosexuality. Heavenly Father has a plan for us to marry a man and a woman, but postmodernism is believing you can do whatever you want. And I guess that's just in Candide, when he didn't believe there was a God, he kind of fell away and he just didn't follow God's guidelines.
Way to go. That's exactly right. And so when they're falling away and they're putting God on a shelf because He doesn't exist, if a God doesn't exist, are there any laws? If God does not exist, would there even be any laws? I know that's kind of a trick question, but
if God didn't exist, there wouldn't be natural laws, I don't think, but there would be like still the same law. I think there would be laws like speeding and stuff, but I think there wouldn't be any natural laws. There wouldn't be all the things that God created. There wouldn't be any of that.
No. And Lehi talks about it, and so does I think Alma talks about it, that if God does not exist, there is no law. If there is no law, there is no sin. If there is no sin, there is no consequence. But they're trying to convince them, saying, but there is a God, and so there has to be a law. And so what's interesting is if people like Voltaire are pretty much killing God in the sense, literally sense, then there is no reason for these people who don't believe in God to think there is a law. And that's why we're having so many problems with homosexuality. You just hit it on the nail on the head. That was awesome. Good understanding. And you've got 2 minutes left. So what do you want to talk about? What book would you like to talk about? Tell me what one maybe impressed you.
I really liked The Rime of the Ancient Mariner.
Okay.
I wrote about this a little bit. I love the part where it said, "He prayeth best that loveth best, all things both great and small." I wrote about that in an assignment, and I wrote about that in written finals, because that was my favorite, because it really is true, because nobody loves more than Jesus Christ. He died for us because he loved us all so much. He went through so much pain because he loved us all. And there's no one has more love than Jesus Christ. So when you pray, you can get some of that love, and you have a better spirit with you. And that's something I've been thinking about a lot. Praying changes my whole day. It fills up my day with a lot more love, and yeah.
Awesome. I have a very big curiosity question. Are any of your family members in there watching you?
No.
You're all alone, huh?
I went to a different room than normal because I didn't want anybody like distracting me.
Okay, that makes sense. I just wish your parents or your siblings were watching you. You've done a wonderful job.
You can watch the recording though, so.
Okay, good. I'll put it up as soon as possible. But so we have 1 minute left. I'm going to ask maybe another question about the rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. What would you say it follows more, natural law or postmodernism, or both?
I think there was a little bit of both. Postmodernism at the beginning, he when he shot the albatross, he wasn't thinking about anything but like he didn't have any standards. He was just like, this thing is annoying, I'm gonna shoot it. But natural law like happened there, I guess, because when he shot the albatross, that was his own decision. But the natural law was that since the albatross was leading him, he wasn't gonna get guided, and so I guess he chose that. But yeah.
Very good. I love it. So from now on, in the rest of the semester, take those ideas of natural law and postmodernism and apply it to what you're reading. And it will clarify so well. Last night, my husband was reading, a response. He teaches BYU Idaho online. And so he's got 50 students and he has to respond to them through text. And one of them wants to be a devil's advocate. And as he was reading his response to this student, I recognized something that I thought my husband could write to him about truth, and about that this guy is focusing on being the advocate, devil's advocate, but why not be focusing on the truth? And I don't know if I've ever been able to see that before, but because I'm studying about postmodernism and natural law, I'm seeing things so much more clearly than I've ever seen before. So I invite you to do that with all that we're reading. By the way, we need to give this girl a hand. Awesome. Well done. And I look forward to all the rest of our discussions that we're going to have in class. Fabulous. And I'm going to hold you to what you said in your test. You said you're going to participate more. Is that right? Good job. I know it sounds scary, but you have so many good things to give and share. It's amazing. So good job. Good. Okay. I'm going to write some things down and then we will be ready for you, Naomi. And is it okay, Mikhail, if you can stay a little bit for Naomi's too, so she has somebody to, or it would be pretty awesome if you could stay. That'd be great. I'll be really fast.
Okay. You used all the hard questions already, right? Now I get all the easy ones left behind from all of it?
No. You're getting the hardest ones that you've never heard before.
They probably weren't even on the study guide, huh?
No, none. They're going to be from the last 10 years that I've been teaching. So be prepared. I hope you know everything about the Renaissance and the medieval time period and ancient Greek and ancient Roman. You got to know it.
Oh yeah. That was all I was studying, and I have not participated in this class at all.
Oh, okay, good. You'll be prepared.
Is it Naomi?
It's Naomi, but I'll respond to either one. So
I hadn't heard that pronunciation before, so when my mom said it, I was just like, wait a minute.
Naomi. Yes. So, Andrew Greenman, your own brother, Erica Olson, taught Naomi in leadership class in Williamsburg.
And Mikkel. Yeah.
Oh, and Mikhail, that's right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah,
You
we
guys,
were troublemakers.
yeah, no, I don't know. What I think is the problem is that you are being bombarded by too many Greenmans. That's what I think.
I'm just so overwhelmed.
I
It's
know.
pushed me so hard.
All right, stand up, Sister Sue. Let's see. Okay, I'm ready to start. Are you ready? And Erica,
Yep.
I'll start out with a few questions if you could be ready after me. Okay, I'm hitting it. Ding, it's going. All right, Naomi, there's no baby kicking in my tummy, so I can start right away. The hardest question is, who wrote the Old Testament? The first 5 books.
The first 5 books. Let's see.
I'm just
Tolstoy.
no. I'm just kidding. It's actually Moses, by the way, but I had to start off with a really hard question for you, Naomi. I told you in your final, because the timer binged. Do you remember? Did you see?
Yes, and you know what? I took 3 minutes in between to eat a potato really fast because it was dinner time and I was so hungry. And I was like, you know what? If I just missed it by like 3 minutes, I guess I'll know that it was because I ate a potato. And then I was like,
darn it.
shouldn't have
Okay,
eaten.
so I'm giving you a chance right now.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you to define postmodernism.
Well, I'm lucky because I got to go last. So I get to take a little bit from everybody, what everyone said.
Yep.
And I think to really define postmodernism, you really have to know what modernism means. And modernism, especially, I think I relate it a lot with art because reading The Sublime Is Now, you really have to know what those mean because in order to apply it. And with art, they were really using like older fashion methods and they were really looking back and honoring the older art and amazing pictures and tapestries and all the beautiful art that they made. And then especially with postmodernism, they were using different mediums and different things to make the art go through faster and just producing a lot. And I think it was postmodernism's a little bit kind of like the confused state after modernism, where people are trying to find out what they believe, and everyone's searching for truth, except for everyone has their own way of doing it. And instead of one right, narrow, straight path, everyone's going out and branching out into various different categories and trying to figure out truth on their own, instead of really relying on Heavenly Father and what we've known this whole time, that we're not alone and that we can rely on our Heavenly Father.
Excellent.
If that makes sense.
Yes. And so if I worshiped my hint and I prayed to it, that's what this is called, hint.
Yeah.
That would mean that anybody would accept it because I live in this postmodern era and I can worship my hint. What's interesting, because I think even we as Latter-day Saints sometimes worship things that aren't God. Is that true, do you think?
Yeah, it can vary so many different things, even members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, where things or social media, and that's really what the postmodern era is people honoring and bowing down to things other than God, even jewelry or clothes, things that don't necessarily matter as much as our Heavenly Father. I mean, when we die and go up to heaven to live with Him again, those things don't come with us. What comes with us is our education, our knowledge, and the people we love around us.
Excellent. So what does relativity mean? And not in the sense that I said on this test, not in the sense of Einstein's relativity that he discussed right before creating the atomic bomb, but what does relativity mean?
Well, I don't know for sure. I pinned this really great article about it, but then I forgot to go back and read it. but can you tell me what it means? Because I'm curious about it.
I can. That's awesome. And I'm going to have Erica write a little note about how good that is to want to learn in your oral. So relative basically kind of goes along with, if you were my sister, we would be relatives, right? Or if you were my cousin, we would be relatives. So we're similar. But that's not what relativity means in the philosophical sense. It means that, have you ever heard of the word objective and subjective? Okay, so objectively, God gives us laws, and they're outside of us, so they are written by Him, and we obey Him. But if I was not going to look at anything objectively, that means I didn't want to look at anything that's set in stone. I want to look at the things that I set in stone. So that would be subjective. And so those are things that are relative to me. Okay? So relativity means just basically postmodernism idea is that I'm only going to believe in the things that are relative to my own thinking, that are subjective to me. So if I wrote an article about my God called Hint, it would be a subjective article, and it would be relative to me, because it's not going to be relative to you, because you're going to go, that's not my God.
Yeah.
Whereas God and natural law are things that are objective. They're outside of us, and they're set.
The universe.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So relativity is things that you set in stone for yourself, and things that you believe, and just the universe and adversary and things that are above or us. Yeah, that makes sense.
So they're relative to you, and they're not relative to me. So that's why we have a lot of relativity in this world, is because we've got 8 billion people in here and in this world, and all of them, if all of them didn't believe in God, they'd all have their own little relativity, their own little subjective self with their own ideas. So yeah.
Not everyone has values and ideas.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go back to your test, and if I forget to do that, just send me a note, and I'll go in and put those in. So, Erica, can we turn the time over to you for some questions for Naomi?
Sorry if I'm looking this way. My camera's here. Just have another screen there. Yep. I'll look at this little dot.
You're fine.
What was a more challenging reading for you this semester? Why?
I think one of the more challenging ones was definitely the Communist Manifesto, because it's just so hard to grasp all the different views, and it was something you kind of have to set yourself up for and see where you stand before going into it. And I mean, it was kind of difficult to explain it to other people, especially because, I mean, you really have to understand where he's coming from and where he's going with it. Put yourself in the reader's shoes a little bit and really stand firm in what you believe.
So in that process, what did you learn about learning new opinions while still maintaining your own?
Well, it's important to go back to the basics, I think, of really understanding what, because you can't have an opinion without knowing what it is you believe or what someone else believes. You have to know both sides of the story, and really knowing what you truly believe and where you stand on certain issues really helped me. And then once you're done worrying about yourself and seeing where you believe and where you stand, you can also go and look at where someone else stands and what was going through their head, because at the time it seemed like a good, firm theory to him, I'm sure.
Yeah. Did you find yourself making adjustments to personal opinions or being strengthened in personal opinions as you read?
No, but I was open to it. I wasn't completely cutting that off, but I did stand with what I believe, that we should be equal, but not all the same. There's a difference between equality and all being like each other and having the exact same values, where as equality, we can have different beliefs and still be equal.
So how did you come away better having studied that?
Can you say that again?
How did you come away better having read the Communist Manifesto?
I think it's great to see different perspectives, because I mean, in life, there's going to be so many different perspectives and different ideas, and you have to be able to cope with that and to be able to learn and keep growing and not staying in one space, in one mindset where you can grow and become better.
Yeah, that's great. I find that sometimes it strengthens my own opinions as they were in a stronger way, just from reading how things could turn out in an opposite world. Why is it important for us to explore different opinions?
Well, there's so many different opinions around us, and if you stay in one same spot, if you don't explore, if you only have one opinion and you just, that's the only opinion you know, then how do you know that that's your opinion? There's so many other opinions and you only know one, and how do you know it's the right one for you, the right choice? Or is it even an opinion if you don't know all the other options?
That's a great point. I'd like to ask you about Les Mis and what resonated with you from that story.
Well, I really liked the mercy and the mercy in that story. It's just so amazing. Like when Jean Valjean stole the bishop's silver, and I mean, even though he had trusted him and brought him into his house and had the faith, he really, when the bishop forgave him and told him to go about a better man, it really resonated with him. And it's all about mercy, and how you treat other people can really change their life or yours. So it's really good to show mercy. And I mean, especially me, I tend to get annoyed fairly easily, especially with like 5 younger siblings. They're always running around doing some little thing that will probably annoy me. But the thing is, you really choose if you get annoyed or not. And I mean, you can change your mindset, and I have to remember that they're just little kids and they're children of God. And it's important to remember that, I mean, they have agency and I have agency too, so I can choose to act or be acted upon, like Billy Greenman says.
Great thoughts.
Thank you. That was really good. I have some questions going back to something that stuck in my mind when you were talking about equality. We didn't talk about the Declaration of Independence in our class, but Thomas Jefferson names our 3 rights that we have. Oh, Carrie's trying to talk to me right now. The 3 rights that are given to us, what are those rights?
God-given rights, right? And so that God-given rights fall under natural law, right?
Yeah. So have you ever read the Declaration of Independence?
Yeah, I memorized the first part of it like a few years ago.
Cool. So the first one is life,
liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Yeah. Yeah, those are the only things that we can be equal in. Those are the only things. And most of people in our day want us to have equal rights in many, many, many more things, like the outcomes that we have, the jobs that we have, even if we get a job or other things. And so I think it's important that we understand natural rights are only those life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Pursuit of happiness, what is that?
I was just about to say something about that. So, pursuit of happiness it really varies, and it really depends on how people look at it. Because so many people can say, "Oh, well, pursuit of happiness, that means I am entitled to a job, because that will help me on the path to the pursuit of happiness." When I don't think that's really the government's place to give people jobs. I mean, when the government was first established, I don't think it was for that. It was mostly for like a format of keeping people in check and in enforcing the laws, not necessarily making new laws. That's not the government's job. That's we as a people. And it depends. I mean, if we're moral people or not, I mean, we're still going to make the laws. And so.
Yeah. Excellent. I love what you said. Time to stop. But I wanted to reiterate one more thing, that because of postmodernism and how people are just making their own ideas and truths, they don't need to really understand those three laws of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, because for them, there is no God, right? And so that's why we're having so many problems. And Mikhail brought this up with homosexuality. That's why we're having so many problems with people saying what they can do and what they can't, is because we don't have to worry, or they don't have to worry about God's law anymore, because there is no God according to them. And that's why we have so many problems. Mm-hmm. So if you can remember what equality is, and it's just equality in those three things, then you'll be able to see through all the bad, false ideas when it comes to political ideas. Yeah. So neat. Good job. Let's give her a hand. We're finishing 4 minutes after you were supposed to start originally. So that's awesome. Oh, you guys did so well. Thank you so much, Mikhail, for coming for the entire thing. You're awesome. I'll get the recordings up soon. I've got to go out and do some errands right now, but they should be up by tonight. So good job, everybody. We'll see you later, and I'm going to stop the recording.